cool that you mentioned Blackberry Smoke. So Charlie Starr, obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a new album out today, but it's absolutely fantastic. And when I listen to Blackberry Smoke, straight away, Skynyrd, I can hear those influences there. And in your track, obviously, I can really hear that.
Yeah.
But there's some great musicians on that track as well, isn't there? On your track, on the
Oh,
new
yeah.
one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know something, man? I mean, I've known Charlie for, quite some time now. I mean, we wrote another song called Old Scarecrow that was on his record.
I don't care about this year's make and model.
If you go back to their very first record, a songwriter named Gordon Kennedy and myself wrote a song called Bottom of This. And Blackberry ended up doing the song. And Trace Atkins was supposed to do it, but the record company felt like there was another song, Badonka-Donk, whatever that is, and Honky-Donk, Badonka-Donk, I think is what it was.
That honky-tonk, badonka-donk.
And they threw, and Trace really wanted to do Bottom of This because it really fit him. And they threw that off and put on the other one, and then Blackberry heard it and they picked it up and they did it on their first record. So Charlie and I have had that kind of relationship, to where we'll be at, I'll be at my home or he'll be at his, and I'll throw him an idea and he throws it back at me and we mix it up. We got a song.
I always felt like Blackberry Smoke were like they were taking the mantle for when Skynyrd finally finished. I always felt they were like that band, you know what I mean? To me, they feel like proper.
Well, it's a funny thing with Lynyrd Skynyrd. We've been at the crossroads so many times of where that we really didn't know what we were going. We didn't know what we were going to do. We lose band members, Leon and Billy, and the guy that took Leon's place, Ian Evans. We lost Huey Thomason, and my God, man, we lose all these people. And finally, here it is, the last of the street survivors, Gary Rossington, last of the head guys that formed the band, founding member. Yeah. And, we lose him, and we've been at this crossroads so many times. And you know what? God bless Johnny Van Zant, man. I mean, listen, the guy's a real trooper. He really is. And when we've lost like Leon, Billy, and stuff like that, I mean, Gary and Johnny and I, would get on the phone and go, "Oh my God, what are we going to do now?"
Yeah.
But really, the deciding factor is always, number one, the fans and the music that they love.
Yeah.
This band, Lynyrd Skynyrd, has always been about the music. Not one person in the band is bigger than the brand name.
No.
And you know what? All the years that I've been associated with this group, and that I've ridden all those miles and flown all those miles and traveled up and down the highway and played the shows up. The one thing that's always been important to us, and this is the truth, the one thing that's always been important to us is those fans. And, they went after this last time with losing Gary. The fans reached out to us. I mean, it was just a blow to everybody, and fans reached out to us. And the one thing that they were saying, please don't let this be the end of it. So Johnny and I had to, we had to talk. And one of Gary's wishes was, and I'll tell everybody this now, one of his wishes was, I don't ever want the brand name, and especially the music, to end with me. It can't do that. And that was a big thing with Johnny and I. So you know what? Right before Gary passed, probably year two, we knew he was getting weak, and we knew he wasn't. See, let's go back to talk about the farewell tour, right? Everybody was like, yeah, no, here we go, another band going, goodbye, farewell. We did the farewell tour, and the reason why we did that, it got misconstrued, and maybe that was due to publicity, maybe that was due to it being put out there under the wrong guise. I don't know, but we did it because Gary couldn't maintain himself for 75, 80 to 100 shows a year. He just couldn't do it. And we understood that. And we said, Gary, what do you want to do? So we went about doing the farewell tour. It was on the weekends where we would all meet on a Thursday. We'd play Friday, Saturday, go home on Sunday, whatever. So that's what it was all about. Then all of a sudden, Gary, we have the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And, that took us off the road for a year and a half.
Man, what did that do to you?
You have no idea. I'll put it to you this way, okay? If it hadn't have been for FaceTime, and my fishing boat down in Florida, I would have went absolutely bonkers. I mean, oh my God, that was listen. I was stuck down at our home in Florida. I was at the house down there, and lo and behold, we have a lot of iguanas down in Florida. And believe it or not, I don't know how this happened. Just call it a gift from above. But 2 iguanas ended up taking up at my house out back on the seawall. And they were only about that big when they first showed up. Well, I went to feeding them. And let me tell you what, they ended up stretching out to about, I would say, from tip of their nose to the tail, probably 3 feet or better.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was my pets. That was my company.
anything to have an animal around, isn't it?
Oh my, yes, anything. So when we did get back together and we fired everything up, we knew that we were going to go out. We went out in 2021, played a couple of shows. We did a big festival in Florida, and it was good because, oh my God, there was so many people at this festival. And I love Johnny stepped out and said, how good does it feel to have live music again? And oh boy, they come unglued. So Gary, he seemed pretty good. Well, we did a special show in Fort Worth, Texas, and at Billy Bob's. And Kid Rock had just played there, and people were doing these special shows to get back at it. And we played there, and I noticed he was not quite himself. And it was apparent that he was having a lot of problems. And so when we went to go back out for longer runs and stuff, like he talked with Johnny, and he said, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. He told me, Rickey, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. Well, we'd already committed ourselves to, dates.
Yeah.
And the one thing that happened during the COVID thing, we were booked in 2020 to play around 65 shows. And we had done the first 2. So that meant there was 62, 63 shows were ticket holders. And we wanted to make good on it. So Gary goes, why don't we go back out? Why don't you guys go back out and just call it the Big Wheels Keep on Rolling Tour? And we explained that to the press. We explained it to people, And it worked. But the problem came with, what are we going to do? We've been a 3-guitar band all these years, and it works, you know. Johnny calls me one day and says, Rickey, do you know anybody that can come in and, you know, play in place of Gary until he gets better, and that can cover those parts, those signature leads, those signature rhythms, everything. And it didn't take me long to go, I know 2 guys. One guy is very busy, I know, but I know one guy, and you know him, Johnny. I said, I know one guy that can come in here and do the job. And I said, that's Damon Johnson. And Johnny goes, oh my God, you're right. He said, can you get a hold of him? I said, I got his number. We've been friends ever since the early 90s. I called Damon up, and it took him by total shock. I explained to him what was going on, that I didn't know if it was going to be a permanent thing, but we needed somebody to come in and play so we could get this organization with the band members and the crew and people fired up to making a living again. Well, Damon came in, and it had Gary's blessings. And now, if you can imagine, we had Gary on FaceTime, but we had Damon here. And Gary sat and listened to us, you know, rehearse. And Damon came in the first day, and noticeably he was pretty nervous about, you know, getting in there. And he did pretty good the first day. But I knew in my mind, we had 2 more days to go. And I knew in my mind, I said, I know this guy, he's going to see where he, you know, made some mistakes here and there. Tomorrow, he will have corrected. Man, the next day, he came in, man, and was smoking. And I got to tell you, we went back out, and the fans accepted it. Some didn't. I mean, it was questionable, you know. But everybody knew Gary had given his blessing for it. And Gary would show up every now and then and play in certain places. He'd get up and play Alabama and Freebird with us. And so it was rolling like that. Damon was having a great time. We were having a great time. The audience was loving it. And came Nashville, we played a show at the Ryman with different guests on the show. And we really had no idea that that would be Gary's last performance. And then Damon is with us, and Gary's memories is instilled in all of us. His spirit's with us every night that we play. I know he is. And, you know, I had looked forward to playing the last note with Gary Rossington on Freebird, but it is what it is. You know, that's...
I mean, I've got to say, it hit me. There's not many, obviously, you know, as we get older and our idols pass away. But I've got to say, Gary Rossington was one of the ones that hit me, along with like Eddie Van Halen a few years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, man, it was, you know, just the whole story behind Skynyrd and, you know, and obviously the crash and all that, and Gary being the last. Man, it was just such a blow. And I can really see that it's affecting you now, man. But you know, like you said, it's been, how long has it been? Just over a year, or just coming up to a year or 2, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's this March 5th. Will be 1 year since he passed. And I'll tell you, there's a special moment that I can tell you about. Going back to 1977, I took my granddaddy Shorty over to see Ronnie and the guys, because Ronnie loved my granddaddy, had dedicated the Nothing Fancy record to him, had dedicated a song in there called Made in the Shade, because my granddad used to tell all of us in the band when I was playing drums for him, you guys keep doing what you're doing, you're going to, one day you'll have it made in the shade. And also Ronnie had taken my granddaddy's influence and, you know, stuff with the blues and wrote the song Curtis Lowe. And so I took my granddaddy over to their studio, and Ronnie was happy to see him. And he played some of the Street Survivors record for us at their studio.
Got out there, man.
And what?
So
There you go. I saw it. Yeah. So when we went to leave, he gave my dad, he gave him a big hug and said, "Shorty, so good to see you," and gave me a hug. He said, "Rickey, what are you doing? You're at home and everything. Why don't you come ride with us? For a little while. We got our own plane. Come ride with us." Well, I thought it was a great idea, And little did I know, Johnny had been asked to, his brother had been asked to come out and go too, Well, 2 days before they left, we got a call from our agency, Blackfoot did, and we had been booked for 2 weeks out. And so as they left Greenville, South Carolina, we were pulling into Columbia, South Carolina. That's how close destiny is, So everything happened. And so fast forward, I'm back in the band, and it's 1996. And we came over to Europe to play dates, and we're in London, and we're sitting in front of the hotel right there in Kensington Park. And we're sitting in front of the hotel in the buses, and we got the double-decker buses, and we're up top where you got the the observation, I call it the observation deck. And I got on bus, and here's Gary and Dale sitting up there. And I got on the bus, and it was the anniversary of the disaster. And I get on, and he slaps me on the shoulder. And I look over at him, he goes, "Where were you?" And I went, "What do you mean, where was it?" He goes, "You know what I'm saying. Where were you on that day?" And I went, "Oh." I said, "Gary, you guys were just leaving Greenville, and I was just pulling into Columbia, South Carolina." I said, "Gary, I always thought maybe had I stayed, being the drummer, maybe, and maybe even been there traveling with you guys or whatever, that I could have made some kind of difference, that I could have said something or done." He goes, "Rickey, there was no changing the minds of people." He said, that's what happened, He goes, "It wasn't meant for you to be there then. It's meant for you to be here now."
Oh, wow.
And I'll never forget that. And I've been back. We've been back to that hotel before. And it's right there by the Princess, where Princess Di lived, and right there, that hotel right there. And I'll always remember that. There's another thing about the UK and about London and stuff. It was always my big dream to play the Royal Albert Hall.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And
yeah.
Skynyrd finally got a chance. Yeah. We played the Royal Albert Hall, and I'll never forget standing on the stage. I didn't want to leave. We played Freebird, and at the end of Freebird, I went up into the audience off the side of the stage. I just didn't want to leave. I just look out. I'm going, wow, I'm at the Royal Albert Hall, man. We're all my heroes.
And it's mad, isn't it? It's mad, because you just mentioned that you was in a festival with God knows how many people, but the Royal Albert Hall, it carries about 6,000-7,000 people, but it's such a special place, isn't it?
Oh, it's totally special, man. Yeah.
Oh, I can't change.